Bien, la segunda pregunta que tenemos y hemos preparado para usted, profesor, es una pregunta sencilla pero importante. ¿Qué es el counter history? O para que los estudiantes de habla hispana entiendan, ¿qué es la historia contraria aplicada al estudio de las ciencias bíblicas?
Yes, the counter history is a concept that was developed in more contemporary studies, especially in Jewish studies, where it has been observed that often Jewish people living in ghetto were taken up discourses or stories from the Christians and were tried to turn it against. They told the same story, but just turned it upside down. So the hero is not anymore the Christian, but maybe the Jew, and so on. So it's a way of resistance against somebody who is more powerful. In the way of ideology, not in the way of fighting, in the way of telling a story, But in order that this story is understandable, of course, people need to know the ongoing majority story. So in the Bible, we can apply this concept of a counter history to different texts. For instance, if we take the text of the birth of Moses in Exodus 2. Moses is born and then hidden by his mother. It's a little strange story, because why does the mother need to hide Moses in a kind of a basket on the Nile River? We don't really understand. If you know that at the same time the Assyrians told a story about Sargon, where it is said that Sargon had a mother who was a priest, and he did not know his father, and the mother put him on a basket, put him on the Euphrates, and then he was fished up by a divine gardener who brought him to Ishtar, and then Ishtar adopted him, and so he became king all over the nations. This is clearly a story that shows that Sargon is the right king, and he's adopted by the goddess Ishtar. The story is told in order to think about the first Sargon. He was more or less a mythical, or maybe he was a real person, but he lived somewhere in the third millennium. Also, the tablets we have from these stories, they all come from the 8th century. So it's probably a story about Sargon II, because Sargon II, the name already said, it's the name, if you translate it, it means just the right king. So probably he had some troubles of recognition, and so he told the story in order to show that he's adopted by the goddess. If we take this story, we see it's very close to the biblical story, and that gives the impression that the author of Exodus 2, where this story is told, knew the story about Sargon being put on a river and then taken up by a divine gardener who brought him to Ishtar. So apparently they imitated the story. But why did they imitate the story? They imitated probably the story in order to show that Moses is a royal figure as important as the big Assyrian king Sargon. Yeah. So it's a way to tell a story which is very similar to the story that the powerful people tell and produce and make copies and send it all over the place. The author of the Bible say, okay, we can tell the same story, and we'll show you that the real king is Moses, for instance. There are other options, of course, where we can apply this concept of a counter story or counter history. This is in the conquest account of the book of Joshua, for instance, because in Joshua it can be observed that many of the conquest story take up again Assyrian propaganda. For instance, just one example in chapter 10, we have this idea that Joshua was fighting a huge army of all kind of a coalition of all kind of enemies from the north, from the south, and but the victory was given by Yahweh, who from the heavens sent very, very heavy hailstones, and these hailstones killed a lot of people, more than the Israel killed. And this is exactly what we can find in an Assyrian text, which is called the letter of Sargon II to the gods, where he is thanking the gods for the divine intervention. So again, it shows that for the biblical authors, they thought that their audience would probably know the Assyrian propaganda, and to say, okay, they tell it about their gods, about Adad, about Assur, and so on. But we know that our God is at least as powerful as the Assyrian God. So it's always taken up a majority story in order to transform it into a story that is a kind of, sometimes even a little bit an ironic way to contest the power of the powerful.
Okay. ¿Por qué en uno de sus libros usted afirma que el Deuteronomio, al menos en parte, es una reformulación de las leyes asirias?
Okay. It's more a reformulation. Of course, the law codes, whether we take the covenant code or the Deuteronomistic code, they are all very much dependent of a common ancient Near East collection of laws, and there are many links between covenant code, but also the Deuteronomy and the Assyrian laws. But what is more important is not as much the taking over of these Assyrian laws, because some of the laws are very common, and you can have it all over the place. You have to respect the orphans, and you have to take care of the less fortunate people, and so this is the royal propaganda. Whether it was really applied or not, that's another question. But what is more important for Deuteronomy is that Deuteronomy is taking over in his way to motivate these laws, the rhetoric of the Assyrian vassal treaties. This is much more important because the Assyrians, when they conquered people, they obliged the conquered nations of people to pay taxes and to be loyal to the Assyrian king. And they published kind of loyalty oaths, or sometimes you can call it also vassal treaties, because the kings then became the vassal of the Assyrian king. And what is very, very interesting, what is very, very interesting, if you look on Deuteronomy, you can see how close Deuteronomy is to Assyrian treaties. So the most important parallels exist between an Assyrian loyalty oath, in which the Assyrian king is exhorting the vassals that they have to pay respect to his son Assurbanipal. And in this loyalty oath, it always starts, "You shall not have other lords next to you other than Assurbanipal." This is very close what we have in Deuteronomy. You should not have other gods next to me than only me, Yahweh. And then it is also said in this vassal treaty, you should love Assurbanipal, your Lord, with all your heart, with all your might, with all your power. Which of course, it's like in the Shema Israel in Deuteronomy. And then it's the end, you have curses, and you have first blessings, but the curses are much more important. And the curses which you have in this treaty, they are very, very close to the curses that you have in chapter 28 of Deuteronomy. And this Assyrian vassal treaty, we can date it to 672, so like 50 years before the reform of Josiah. And it's very, very plausible that in the Temple of Jerusalem there was a copy of this treaty, because this treaty, we know there are different copies, And quite recently in Tel Tayinat, which is now the south of Turkey, they found a copy of exactly this treaty that was still attached in, there was a hole to attach it in the temple of Tayinat, so that everybody could read it. Everybody could read it. So we can imagine in the temple of Jerusalem, maybe under Manasseh, we had a copy of that. So the scribes, they could read it. And they read it and took it over for Deuteronomy. So it's exactly the same idea. There's only one Lord, but it's not the king of Assyria. This is Yahweh, the God of Israel. So this is also kind of counter-history. This is a way to fight the Assyrians, not with weapons, but with ideology.
Very interesting, Professor.